Flight attendant denies LeBron James a first-class seat, regrets it when the truth is revealed. Sarah Mitchell had been a flight attendant for Delta Airlines for 15 years, working her way up to first-class service on international routes. That crisp October morning at LAX airport felt like any other, until it wasn't. Her perfectly pressed uniform and confident stride through Terminal B masked the exhaustion from back-to-back flights and personal struggles. Her mother's recent cancer diagnosis had been weighing heavily on her mind. Final preparations for Flight DL2847 to New York crackled over her radio as she entered the pristine first-class cabin. Sarah began her routine checks, her movements automatic after thousands of similar mornings. The manifest showed a full first-class section, including several VIP passengers. As boarding began, Sarah noticed a tall man in a hoodie and sweats approaching the first-class entrance. His casual attire triggered an immediate reaction, a bias she'd developed after years of dealing with passengers trying to sneak into first class. "I'm sorry, sir, but this is the first-class boarding area," Sarah said firmly, blocking the entrance. "Economy boarding is through the rear entrance." The man quietly reached for his phone, but Sarah interrupted. "Sir, please proceed to the correct boarding area. We need to keep this entrance clear for our first-class passengers." What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion. The hood came down, revealing the unmistakable face of LeBron James. Sarah's heart stopped. Behind him, phones were already recording. His security detail stepped forward, but LeBron raised a hand to stop them. "Ma'am," he said calmly, displaying his boarding pass, "I am a first-class passenger, but more importantly, I'm a human being who deserves the same respect as anyone else." The words hit Sarah like a physical blow. In her stress and exhaustion, she'd made a terrible assumption. She could already hear the whispers, see the phones recording. Her face burned with shame as she realized her mistake would soon be viral content. "Mr. James, I'm so sorry," she stammered, but the damage was done. Other passengers were already tweeting about the incident. Her supervisor, Angela, appeared seemingly out of nowhere, profusely apologizing to LeBron. As LeBron took his seat, Sarah retreated to the galley, her hands shaking. 15 years of exemplary service, and in one moment she had not only embarrassed herself, but potentially damaged the airline's reputation. Worse, she had perpetuated exactly the kind of prejudice she had always prided herself on fighting against. "Sarah, we need to talk after the flight," Angela whispered, her expression grave. "For now, just do your job." The flight to New York suddenly felt like the longest of her career, and it hadn't even taken off yet. Sarah knew that somewhere in the digital ether, her mistake was already becoming a viral sensation, and her world was about to change forever. By the time Flight DL2847 reached cruising altitude, Sarah's worst fears were confirmed. Flight attendant fail and LeBron first were trending on Twitter. The video of the incident had already garnered millions of views, with comments ranging from calls for her firing to heated debates about profiling and privilege. Sarah maintained her professionalism throughout the flight, but each time she passed LeBron's seat, her chest tightened. What surprised her was his demeanor. He remained gracious, accepting her service with quiet dignity. During a moment of turbulence, she noticed him calming a nervous young passenger seated next to him, showing more compassion than she had shown him. Midway through the flight, Sarah's phone vibrated in the crew area. Her sister had sent a barrage of texts. "You're all over the news," followed by links to various media outlets. CNN was already running the story. Her hands trembled as she read the headlines. "NBA star LeBron James faces discrimination on Delta flight." In first class, Sarah overheard snippets of conversations about the incident. A business executive mentioned how his own son, a young black professional, often faced similar assumptions. Each word felt like a needle in her conscience. She thought about her mother, fighting cancer in the hospital, who had always taught, her to judge people by their character, not their appearance. The social media storm intensified. Delta's corporate communications team had already issued a preliminary statement. We are aware of the incident involving one of our flight attendants and are investigating the matter. Delta has zero tolerance for discrimination of any kind. Sarah's phone continued buzzing with messages from colleagues and friends. Some offered support, others expressed disappointment. One message from her best friend Jenny stood out. "Remember when you defended me against that racist customer last year? You're not that person from this morning. Everyone makes mistakes." As they began their descent into New York, Sarah received an email from HR requesting an immediate meeting upon landing. The weight of consequences began to feel crushingly real. Her career, her reputation, everything she'd worked for hung in the balance because of one prejudiced assumption. Through the cabin window, she could see the Manhattan skyline emerging through the clouds. Somewhere in that city, news crews would be waiting. This wasn't just about a flight attendant and a basketball star anymore. It had become a national conversation about bias, privilege, and the snap judgments we make about others. LeBron James remained absorbed in reading something on his tablet, seemingly unaffected by the storm brewing around him. But Sarah noticed something else. He was reading an article about childhood cancer research, the same topic she'd been researching for her mother's condition. The universe, it seemed, had a strange way of revealing our shared humanity. The landing at JFK felt like touching down in a different world. Through the terminal windows, Sarah could see news vans gathering. Her supervisor, Angela, pulled her aside before she could exit the aircraft. "Corporate wants you to use the staff exit," Angela explained. "And Sarah, LeBron James wants to speak with you." Sarah's heart raced as she followed Angela to a private lounge. There sat LeBron, his imposing figure somehow less intimidating in the quiet room. To her surprise, he was alone, having dismissed his security detail. "Sit down, please," he said, gesturing to the chair across from him. "I saw you looking at the cancer research article during the flight. Want to tell me about that?" The unexpected question broke something in Sarah. Before she could stop herself, she was telling him about her mother's battle with cancer, the mounting medical bills, the sleepless nights, and the stress that had been crushing her spirit. "I made an inexcusable mistake this morning," she said, wiping tears. "My personal struggles don't justify my actions, but I want you to know that's not who I am." LeBron listened intently, his expression thoughtful. "You know what struck me?" he said finally. "When that young kid was scared during turbulence, you were there in seconds. I watched you throughout the flight. You're good at your job." "One mistake doesn't define you." He pulled out his phone, showing her something that made her gasp. While the incident video had gone viral, LeBron had just posted a new message to his millions of followers. "Today taught me about judgment, both facing it and withholding it. I'm working with Delta to turn this into a learning moment, not a punishment. Sometimes our worst moments can lead to our greatest growth." A second chances. The post was already gaining traction, shifting the narrative, but LeBron wasn't finished. "I have a foundation that works with several hospitals," he continued. "Give me your mom's information. Let's see what we can do to help." Sarah's hands shook as she wrote down her mother's details. Outside, the media circus continued, unaware that the story was taking an unexpected turn toward healing rather than hatred. Within 48 hours, the story had transformed completely. LeBron's post sparked a national conversation about compassion and second chances. Second chances replaced G-Racha flight attendant fail as the trending topic, with thousands sharing their own stories. Of redemption and forgiveness, Delta's corporate response evolved too. Instead of terminating Sarah, they announced a new company-wide initiative on unconscious bias training, with Sarah and LeBron invited to contribute to its development. The airline's CEO released a statement. We're turning this incident into an opportunity for growth and learning. But the most profound change happened at Mount Sinai Hospital, where Sarah's mother was receiving treatment. LeBron's foundation hadn't just offered to help. They'd enrolled her in an innovative cancer treatment program and covered all expenses. When Sarah visited her mother, she found her smiling for the first time in months. "You raised me better than how I acted that day," Sarah told her mother, holding her hand. But making that mistake, it led to something incredible. The media picked up this aspect of the story. Headlines shifted from condemnation to celebration. NBA star turns airport incident into life-changing moment. Sarah's inbox filled with messages from other flight attendants sharing similar experiences and thanking her for her honesty in addressing her mistake. During a particularly touching moment, Sarah received a video message from a young black athlete who'd faced similar prejudice. Seeing both sides acknowledge their humanity and grow from this, "That's rare these days," he said. "You and LeBron showed us how to be better." The story reached the White House, where the president cited it as an example of how America could heal its divisions. Airlines across the industry began reviewing their training protocols. What had started as a moment of prejudice was catalyzing real change. Sarah's colleagues noticed a change in her too. She worked with renewed purpose, making a special effort to connect with every passenger, regardless of appearance. Her supervisor noted that she'd become one of their most requested flight attendants. One evening, while visiting her mother during treatment, Sarah received another surprise. LeBron had arranged for the entire Lakers team to visit the cancer ward, bringing joy to dozens of patients. Watching her mother laugh with the players, Sarah realized that sometimes our worst mistakes can lead to our greatest blessings. 1 year later, Sarah stood at the podium of Delta's annual leadership conference, addressing thousands of airline industry professionals. The incident that had almost ended her career had instead transformed it. She was now heading Delta's new passenger relations training program, sharing her story to help others learn from her experience. "We all carry biases," she began, her voice steady. "The real measure of character isn't never making mistakes. It's how we learn from them." In the audience, she spotted LeBron, who had taken time from his busy schedule to attend. Their unlikely friendship had become a symbol of what was possible when people chose understanding over anger. Sarah's mother, now in remission thanks to the treatment program, sat in the front row. The previous week, they'd celebrated her final all-clear scan with a surprise party organized by none other than LeBron and his foundation team. The moment had come full circle. The conference unveiled groundbreaking changes in airline industry practices. Delta's new training program, developed with input from both Sarah and LeBron, was being adopted by other major carriers. The incident that went viral had sparked a movement toward more compassionate air travel. After the conference, Sarah found herself back in the first-class cabin of a flight to Los Angeles. As passengers boarded, she noticed a young man in casual clothes approaching. For a split second, old habits threatened to surface, but she smiled warmly instead. "Welcome aboard," she said, genuinely meaning it. The passenger turned out to be a rising NBA rookie who recognized her from the story. They shared a knowing look, both understanding how far things had come. That evening, Sarah received a text from LeBron with a photo of his foundation's latest project, a new cancer research wing at Mount Sinai Hospital, named after Sarah's mother. The plaque read, "Where mistakes turn into miracles." As Sarah prepared for takeoff, she thought about how one morning had changed everything. The viral video that had almost destroyed her was now used in training sessions worldwide, teaching others about prejudice, forgiveness, and the power of second chances. Looking out at the sunset over LAX, Sarah remembered LeBron's words from that day in the private lounge. "One mistake doesn't define you. She had proven those words true, not just for herself, but for countless others who would learn from her. Story! The captain's voice came over the intercom, announcing their departure. Sarah smiled, knowing that every flight now carried the possibility of changing someone's life for the better. She had learned that sometimes the most turbulent moments lead to the smoothest landings, and that true growth often begins with the courage to admit our mistakes and the grace to learn from them. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. And please rate it from 0 to 10 right in the comments. See you next time.